What's going on, guys? Welcome on back to the Second and Short podcast. My name is Tyler Lauder, joined with a familiar face, Molly McIntyre. Molly, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. Can't complain when it's draft week. Pretty exciting 3 days ahead of us.
Oh yeah, this weekend is one of my favorite weekends every year. I'm excited just to see how the landscape of the NFL is going to change. This year seems like it's more open and crazy than it has been in the past decade, it seems like. But I'm excited. I think there's going to be a lot of all pros coming out of this draft. I'm really excited for these prospects.
Yeah, Thursday night, you actually don't really know what to expect. I mean, the first three picks kind of seem locked in, and we'll get there. But a lot of picks after that, it's like, who are they going to take? Who's going to trade in? 5 quarterbacks could go in the top 10. We just don't know right now, but it'll be exciting Thursday night to see what happens.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. And you know what? With that being said, this is Second and Short's one and only mock draft. There's no doing 18 different revisions of these just to get clickbait on you guys. We're done. We're doing this mock draft. We're going to do 2 rounds for you guys. Today, we're just going to talk about the first round. We'll show you guys the second round at the very end. We're just going to kind of highlight who we think are going to be steals in the second round. So, with all that being said, Molly, you are on the clock with the number 1 pick in the Jacksonville Jags, and this isn't much of a thought, but go ahead.
Yeah, there's no suspense here, but the Jacksonville Jaguars with a number 1 overall pick take quarterback Trevor Lawrence from Clemson. You know, like we said, isn't even a question. This kid is super confident, self-assured, talented. He said in an interview that he doesn't even have a chip on his shoulder. He knows what he's about. You can hope that he's like Burrow and Herbert from the 2020 class. And he's just the best quarterback available by a wide margin, and you just hope Jacksonville can build around him and make something special.
Yeah, I don't think there's a question here about who should go number 1. I know there's been people that have said things like, hey, maybe somebody else should jump up there. We've seen Fields and Wilson, but that's all smoke. I think this is one of the most guaranteed number 1 pick locks since Andrew Luck was taken back with the Colts. And I just feel like this is the most confident I've ever felt about a team drafting. And with that being said, the number 2 pick on the clock, the New York Jets. And with the number 2 pick, they are going to also stay quarterback. And they're going to take Zach Wilson out of BYU. Now, myself personally, he is not my QB2, but it's just the mold of today's NFL. If you can get that Patrick Mahomes, that gunslinger, that guy that can run out of the pocket and roll out, his ability to throw the ball with timing and anticipation is elite. His production has been really good. I mean, he's been clutch this past year. Granted, BYU doesn't play the most prestigious competition. He only played 2 ranked teams, and he lost one of those games. And I think that Zach Wilson is one of these guys that we see every year have these late year, I don't even know what it is, just coming out parties, and it moves him up the draft like crazy. Because preseason, this guy was, I don't even know, a second round pick.
It makes sense that they're going after a quarterback. What scares me about Zach Wilson is, I think he has the highest bust potential of all the quarterbacks. I think, when he's good, it's really good. But like Sam Darnold, when it's bad, it's bad. So we'll have to see how he kind of molds into the NFL. And it's tough because he's going to a team like the Jets where they need more than just a quarterback. So it'll be interesting to see. I think Zach Wilson's a lock at number 2.
Really the biggest thing we have to look at with the Jets is, are they going to do what they did with Sam Darnold and not protect him, or are they actually going to provide help for Zach Wilson?
Yeah, well, we'll talk about another quarterback because we're pretty sure the first 3 picks are going to be quarterback. So 49ers moved up to number 3 here, and so you can assume that they're getting a quarterback, and I think they're going to take Mac Jones, quarterback from Alabama, and the rumors of them taking him had everybody kind of scratching their head, but honestly, they say they're comfortable with Jimmy G, but if you look at Mac Jones' play, he has a pinpoint accuracy when throwing the ball. Some scouts believe he has the largest upside of the draft, and I think that there's something to that. He took over for Tua after he got injured in Alabama, and the system shifted from them running a bunch of RPOs to a lot of pro-level throws where he's dropping back. So he threw for 5,000 yards, 41 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, and 77% completion rating. That's pretty good. Granted, he plays for Alabama where the talent is amazing, but I think San Francisco also has a Super Bowl roster. They just got pretty much screwed with injuries last year, so it'll be interesting. I saw last night Bleacher Report reported that they're between Mac Jones and Trey Lance, so we'll see what happens, but I think Mac Jones goes here at 3rd.
To me personally, I think moving from Jimmy G to Mac Jones is moving laterally. And like, if you're not trying to improve in the NFL at a position, I don't understand what you're doing. And here's the thing that I was listening to earlier about Dan Patrick. And he kind of said that just because like people label you as a bust doesn't mean that you're not a good player. It's just all these expectations that whoever gets drafted number 3 by the 49ers is that, like you said, this roster is playoff ready. It's almost Super Bowl ready. If a quarterback plays okay, they can get to the Super Bowl, but if they never like dominate and win one, people are going to look at this as like a wasted opportunity. So with the number 4 pick, the Atlanta Falcons are on the clock, and surprise, they're not trading. We've seen reports that Julio Jones, as of this morning, might get shipped out. You know, we're talking, they're trying to save some cap space. But for me, that doesn't mean that they can just go out and draft somebody like Jamar Chase. They can't just trade down and hope that players fall in their laps. I think they just need to go out and get the best guy available, and that is Florida tight end Kyle Pitts. I mean, this guy was playing with a quarterback, Kyle Trask, who I'm not a big fan of, and made him look better than he actually is, in my opinion. I mean, 12 touchdowns in 8 games. This guy dominated SEC competition. He's one of these guys that's like an athletic freak. And we're going to hear a lot of that on game day, on draft day. That's one of my favorite things, like these like definitions of players that doesn't actually define who they are. Now, let's talk about some cons real quick. He has a short list of cons. He's not that great of a blocker. But then again, he doesn't have to be because he's a fantastic receiver. He's good underneath. He can beat you on the outside. He's able to use his body to get really good positioning. And he can track the ball like no other tight end I've seen in the past, like, I don't even know, like 5-10 years. But for the Falcons, this makes sense because Hurst is 28. He's in the last 2 years of his deal. He's not getting paid much. But even if they keep Julio or get rid of Julio, they can secure this tight end position and go for wide receiver a little later in the draft, as it is very deep.
Yeah, Kyle Pitts here. Every other in the team in the NFL is looking at him, hoping he falls, but I can't see him getting out of the top 5 for sure. But the Falcons there, if they are shipping off Julio Jones, they still have Calvin Ridley. They still have a lot of younger guys who did just fine when Julio was out. But I think Kyle Pitts, obviously, is a huge upgrade at tight end, would be a huge addition for this team that's pretty much rebuilding. But move on to the next pick here with number 5, the Cincinnati Bengals. And this might be a surprise. They're taking Jamar Chase, the wide receiver from LSU. Basically, you know, you look at that picture of Joe Burrow's knee and you're wondering like how they could not get offensive line here, but Joe Burrow has been lobbying within Cincinnati to get Jamar Chase because he was the top target at LSU when he won the Heisman that year. You know, he set the single season SEC record for yards and touchdowns as a true sophomore. He's a great route runner. He has good hands. He has good post-catch abilities, and he can target the ball extremely well. He needs an ideal setting to produce, though. That kind of worries me a little bit. Like, he couldn't quite replace the same success last year without Burrow and Joe Brady. But, again, best wide receiver in the draft in a deep wide receiver class. But I think the Bengals do this, and it is a mistake. I think they need to take Penei Sewell, but I think that they take Jamar Chase at 5 and kind of just everybody's going to scratch their heads about it.
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I think getting an offensive lineman is the best solution. I really don't even care who it is. Now, I do understand the argument for it because they did just go out and get Riley Reif to play right. He's going to play right tackle, they're saying. The offensive line looks like it's better with Jonah Williams there and Billy Price, and they have pieces there, but people need to be healthy. If people are healthy, they can help block, but if they're not healthy, they can't block. Here's the thing. Jamar Chase sat out this past season as a smart move. He didn't need to improve his draft stock at all. He's already, in my opinion, the best receiver in this class and last class combined. He is a true playmaker once he gets that ball in his hands. The biggest concern is he takes plays off when the play isn't designed for him, but that's a lot of receivers. Like Randy Moss would do that every now and then, and he's one of the greatest receivers of all time. Now, moving on to the 7th. Oh, hold on. Was 6.
I skipped 2 picks real quick.
Moving on to the 6th pick, we have the Miami Dolphins. And a couple weeks ago, I predicted that the NFL draft is going to have lots of trades. But in our mock draft here, we didn't really go through and dive deep into a ton of trades. We do have trades here, and we'll break them down when they happen. However, the Miami Dolphins are in a position where their top 2 guys, Kyle Pitts and Jamar Chase, are off the board. Now, everybody's saying they're going to trade down. But in my opinion, they've already got 2 first-round picks. They got 2 second-round picks. They got multiple picks next year. Why trade down? Just take the best guy you got. And that, for me, is Penei Sewell, offensive tackle out of Oregon. Now, another guy that kind of sat out this year, and he dominated back with Justin Herbert, but he comes in to be a dominant premier left tackle for the next 10 to 15 years. He has tremendous size. He's really good on the outside. He's able to move well. He's got quick feet. He's really agile. And the only thing really is that he has times when he dominates opposing defenders. And then he has times when he goes to dominate them and then thinks his job is done and doesn't finish out the play. Really, I'm picking at nothing, in my opinion. If Tua's your guy, protect him, move forward. And this deal just looks even better because they traded away Tunsil for a bunch of picks, and now they get a younger guy plus more picks. So,
yeah, Penei Sewell is an attractive name in this class. A lot of teams are going to draft a tackle or an offensive lineman in this first round, and there's going to be, like you said, trades, and this might be a spot where the Dolphins trade down and in this deep offensive lineman class, grab someone else to get more picks, and someone's going to want Penei Sewell, like the Chargers, reunite him with Justin Herbert, but Penei Sewell's the best guy on the board right here. I think that's a great pick. Like you said, we didn't dive deep into, trades or anything, but I think this is another place, number 7, where the Lions are, in which they could trade down. They're in full rebuild mode. I said that before we started recording, so I think that they're gonna try to get more draft picks rather than drafting super high or trading up. But just assuming they're staying where they are, at number 7, they're gonna draft Jalen Waddle, wide receiver from Alabama here. Lions could move back here, like I said, but this is the best wide receiver on the board after Jamar Chase. They lost both Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones Jr. this offseason. There's going to be a question at wide receiver, especially with Jared Goff coming in. He's a smaller wideout, but he's extremely fast. Like, he makes everybody else look like they're moving in slow motion, as you've heard. He's a great round runner, and he can use in the slot, but, he can be used in the backfield. He can be used on the outside. He can do really anything. And to have a good wide receiver who can do this versatile amount with a quarterback, Jared Goff, in a newer system, I think that would help out a lot, especially since their number 1 wide receiver right now is Tyrell Williams. I think they got in the offseason. So they need a wide receiver here, and I think Jalen Waddle's the best after Jamar Chase.
My favorite thing, whenever I hear people talk about how fast he is, it looks like slow motion. Like, I just think of, like, the longest yard, and it's like, he's so fast, he makes fast people look not fast. Like, that's the quote that goes in my head. And it's true. He is extremely fast, and he's not. So last year, Alabama had Henry Ruggs leave them, who's an extremely fast guy. And people were saying he's a good route runner, but really he kind of had like a small, limited 2 to 3 route tree. Jalen Waddle is even better than that. And before he got hurt and went out, him and Devontae Smith were both dominating, and he was actually outplaying Smith this year. Really, the only reason Devontae Smith won the Heisman is because there was nobody else there for most of the season, and he was able to bring in so much. If Waddle was there, we wouldn't have seen a wide receiver Heisman. We'd have seen another guy get even pushed up even higher and maybe be in consideration for the number 1 wide receiver. This is a great pick for the Lions. They got to start building. We got multiple picks coming up in the next year. Just establish some long-term players now. Now, with the number 8 pick, we have our first trade of the draft. Now, you can see up here on the graphic, the trade is the Carolina Panthers are trading away number 8. The Patriots are sending away picks 15, 96, next year's 1st, and 4th. They get to move up, still keep their 2nd round pick, and they get to go up and get their guy. Their guy is quarterback Trey Lance out of North Dakota State University. This guy was dominant in 2019. 28 touchdowns, no interceptions. And I know a lot of people are saying, like, there are some plays that are really bad. Yeah, if you can look at every player, every player has bad plays. Trevor Lawrence graded out with a 90 overall Pro Football Focus grade 3 years in a row. He has bad plays. But for me, Trey Lance provides maybe the most upside of any quarterback in this draft. And he has the ability to sit back and learn from Cam Newton for at least a year. Even if he doesn't, I know a lot of people don't like Cam Newton, but Cam Newton will show you everything to do right as well as everything to do wrong. And I think that's a key thing for somebody to learn. And with the Patriots, they get a guy that brings them the high upside that can lead them back into the top of the AFC East for a long time.
Yeah, Trey Lance here, there's a lot of arguments that, he doesn't play that SEC grind, he doesn't play in a tougher, but, I mean, if you say that about every player, you're only drafted from Alabama or LSU, but I think Trey Lance has a lot of upside, like you said, and especially with a coach like Bill Belichick, who knows what he's doing, especially with quarterbacks, who are probably a smaller name and come from schools with less competition. But, the Patriots went out and spent the most guaranteed money this offseason. They're ready to, They did not like losing last year. They're ready to start winning games. I don't think Cam Newton is the answer. I hope he does well because, Cam Newton just had an unfortunate career, honestly. But you just know that he's not the answer, and I think Trey Lance could lead them places.
We'll go ahead and move on with the number 9 pick.
Number 9, the Denver Broncos, and there's a lot of questions here if they take a quarterback, or if like Mac Jones were to slip, or maybe a Justin Fields here, but I think a more Denver pick would be Micah Parsons, linebacker from Penn State. I think they'll ride out Drew Lock another year, see what happens. That team was pretty banged up last year, but Micah Parsons opted out of the 2020 season, but those 2 years he did play at Penn State, it was super impactful. They missed him last year. Their defense fell apart last year without him. And he's a freak. He's got a great combo of size and explosiveness. He plays the gaps extremely well, and he plays between the tackles great. So he's a good running stopper too, which is important. But he's just an overall dynamic player. He has incredible instinct. He's a good blitzer, and you need one of those guys when you play in a division with Justin Herbert and Patrick Mahomes. You need to get to the quarterback, make him make mistakes, and I think this is just a good Denver pick. They've got a great defense, a great secondary. Von Miller's a leader. I think that this is a Denver pick here.
I think they need to establish at that second level with that linebacking group to have somebody that is younger that can be the bigger leader. I know Von Miller's kind of there, but for me, you need an inside linebacker that is going to carry your team when you're not performing your best. You need a guy that's going to run sideline to sideline for you and rack up 18 tackles because he just has a nose for the ball. And that's what Parsons has here. Now, with the number 10 pick in the NFL draft, the Dallas Cowboys trade down. They wanted to trade up. They really wanted to, but Atlanta was holding on to 4. They're not getting rid of Kyle Pitts. So Jerry Jones does what Jerry Jones has been doing. And this pandemic has helped out Jerry Jones in a way that he is not surrounding himself with a bunch of people. He's by himself and he knows what he's doing. And he trades down to number 20. And the Chicago Bears trade on up. Now, the Chicago Bears, I kind of looked at a similar trade that happened a couple years ago with Denver and Pittsburgh swapping 10 to 20 and kind of mimicked my trade based on that. So the Cowboys send away pick number 10. Chicago Bears send picks 20, 52, and a future 3rd and 6th round pick. For the Bears, they need a quarterback. They take quarterback Justin Fields out of Ohio State. Now, let's talk about why the Bears are doing this. The Bears need a quarterback. I know they went and got Andy Dalton, but if they didn't like Andy Dalton in the 2020 offseason, why do they like him now? His tape in 2020 wasn't fantastic and stood out or anything. And for me, getting Justin Fields is the 5th quarterback here. He's my QB3. This is a steal of the draft. And this is going to help the Bears keep that playoff team that they got right now and push over that hump and compete with teams like Minnesota and Green Bay, who are better teams, in my opinion, at this point, because they have better quarterback play. Justin Fields is a playmaker. He's a baller. I know we don't talk about guys in the NFL like we do NBA, but he's a hooper is what I would consider Justin Fields to be. He's just a guy that's out there to make big plays on big days. That's what he's going to do. And for this team here, I've been talking about Justin Fields for a while, and I'm not an Ohio State fan at all. I am not. But I think Justin Fields is better than Mac Jones in every capacity of the way outside of intermediate accuracy. And that's it. Otherwise, I think he is a guy that's going to lead the Bears to the playoffs.
Yeah, I think Justin Fields here is criminally underrated, and slipping to 10 is honestly a tragedy. I think he is better than, you said Mac Jones, but I think he could honestly be better than Zach Wilson. And he's just had some qualities that scare a lot of teams. But I think Justin Fields has a great upside in the NFL. In a team like Chicago, where they've got a good defense, they would have a good wide receiver in Allen Robinson. They might need to patch up that offensive line. They've got good running back play, might need another wide receiver. But I think this would be a good team fit for them. And like you said, they need that quarterback to compete with the Aaron Rodgers and the Kirk Cousins and now Jared Goff, which we don't know what he'll be like in Detroit, but they need a quarterback pretty bad. Moving on to number 11, this one, New York Giants here. I think they take J.C. Horn, cornerback from South Carolina. And, for the longest time, the best quarterback in the draft was either between Caleb Farley, Patrick Surtain. You take your pick, but when Caleb Farley got injured, it kind of rose Patrick Surtain up. And he kind of seemed like the number one, J.C. Horn coming at number 2, but with his pro day, man, JC Horn is a freak athlete. He ran a 4.39 40. He had a 42-inch vertical. Like, he's ready to play some ball. He's got some things to work on. Like, he doesn't tackle super well in his size. Sometimes he guesses routes and tries to mirror them and screws up, but he has like the best. He's like a ball hawk. I think he's the best cornerback just with athleticism wise, and he's just grown each year at South Carolina. And I think he would be a good fit for this New York Giants team. They might have other issues to address here, but I think this is the best player on the board at this point for him to take.
And what's great for him here is that he gets to go to a place that already has James Bradbury established as the number one cornerback, so he doesn't have to come in and go against the best receiver every game. He can, and I agree, as that playmaking ability. I saw a stat, and I'm not going to dive too deep on it, but there was something like this past year. There was only one receiver to get over 50 receiving yards on him all year. It was Devontae Smith, and I think he got like 61 or 62. Like, it was like his worst game of the year. So he dominated. We also talk about he's a legacy player. His dad Joe Horn played for the Saints. So I mean, he's got connections there, and this lineage is going to continue on with this Giants organization. Now, with the number 12 pick in the NFL draft, the Philadelphia Eagles, who previously had number 6, traded on down, got some more picks. A move that I never would ever see Philly doing, but a genius move because Philly needs more picks. They're one of the farthest teams away from a playoff team. They're going to take wide receiver Devonta Smith out of Alabama. Now, he is a guy that I struggle with enjoying and liking as an NFL player because of his size. Not because like it's hard for me to watch him, like think about how I'm going to watch him in the NFL, because I'm so scared that some safety is going to come over and just crush him at his legs and he's just going to be done. But this guy is very athletic. He's very strong. And here's the thing. When you don't have the size necessarily or like the genetic makeup that your position is supposed to have, you have to find ways to adapt. And that's how we see greatness come through in all types of players. So let's talk about what he's excellent in. First of all, he's the best route runner in the class. I mean, it comes without saying. He's a first-round pick out of Alabama. He's probably the best route runner. And it falls true. On top of that, his ability off the line to use his hands and create separation is fantastic. I mean, if it's a quick slant, he's going to create separation within 1 to 2 steps that you normally wouldn't see out of players. He's also really good at tracking the ball. And he can, like I said, his ability to just he's consistent. And one of my favorite traits, let's be honest, my favorite trait, and this is why I'm also scared, he's got that Steve Smith mentality where he will see somebody in his way and he needs to get a yard or two for a first down. He's just going to tuck his head and just go. He's going to fight for it. He's never going to stop fighting for an extra yard or two. And that's a quality that I really like in my players in the NFL. What do you think about Philly going and getting a guy that can play opposite of Jalen Reagor? I
think it's a good pick. I think that, I'm blanking. What's the quarterback's name here? Jalen Hurts, man. I'm like Justin Fields. Yeah, they said it's a quarterback competition, but that just seems like it's garbage to me. I think putting him alongside Reagor, which I don't know if you saw, but Eagles fans have been attacking him on social media, and he deleted all his posts. He put in his bio and said he's a draft bust. So I think he's got a chip on his shoulder coming here, and I think putting him alongside Devontae Smith, especially in maybe a weaker NFC East division like we all see. One of them's going to get open. One of them's going to have a good time. I think that they do need to, use those additional picks on some offensive line help, and that'll help. But I think that's a good pick. I think Devontae Smith, the Heisman Trophy winner, he's a great wide receiver. Some qualities do scare me, like you said, but I think they get another weapon. They don't botch on a wide receiver like they did last year. They're still kicking themselves in the head not getting Justin Jefferson. But moving on, I think 13, we got the Los Angeles Chargers, and they can do a lot of things here, honestly. It depends who's on the board. They could trade up. They could be moving back a little bit, but having them stay at 13, I think they take Rashawn Slater, offensive tackle from Northwestern. Again, he opted out of the 2020 season, but he had great years of play at Northwestern. His probably best quality is that he's like a flexible, offensive lineman. He can fit multiple needs on the line. So if they lose Brian Bulaga, they lose Matt Filer, their whole new revamped offensive line that they just made this free agency, he can fit any of those positions, but their hole is left tackle, which he is a great left tackle. He has good cutoff abilities, great footwork, good strength. He can hold his own, and you need protection for Justin Herbert. You need Justin Herbert to be upright all the time, throwing the ball. You need him not running around the pocket scrambling for his life like he did last year. And the Chargers did a lot for that offensive line, and I think they continue, get one more tackle, and then they'll move on, get their other needs. But Tom Telesco also to join here, he's just a best player on the board type of guy. So it really depends what happens 1 through 12. But I think Rashawn Slater here is the best player on the board for him.
Yeah, I agree. And another thing that he brings to that you didn't touch on yet is that he is versatile. Like, realistically, let's say he doesn't pan on his left tackle, he can kick in at guard. He can play right tackle. Like, he has this ability to play other positions. And I think versatility is one of the best abilities you can have in the NFL. And so I like this pick. I think he falls just due to the quarterback demand above. And this is a great steal for the Chargers, who don't even have to trade up to get a starting tackle for them at all in this draft. Now, moving on to number 14, and we have the Minnesota Vikings, a very interesting spot for them to be in. And I want to take a tackle as well. I really want to take offensive line. However, I went against it. And with the 14th pick in the NFL draft, the Minnesota Vikings take Kwity Paye, edge rusher out of Michigan. I mean, this guy got better and better every year. He's a fantastic football player. And I think he's really athletic. He's got good speed, and he's got really good strength. He's one of those guys that I would give like a grade of like a B to B plus almost on all of his traits. Now, he's not super bulky. He's pretty lean. But he's 6'2", 261. I think his ability on the edge is going to help this Vikings team get back to this type of defense that we're used to them having. A team that's getting 45 plus sacks a year. And I think they can take a defensive end now because the class isn't very deep, and they can come back around later in the draft, maybe round 3, and get an offensive lineman because this offensive lineman class is so deep.
I agree with you here because, at first when we were doing this and you put him down at 14, I was kind of like, they need some offensive line help pretty bad. But like you said, their defense has been underwhelming the last couple of years. They just haven't had that purple people eater defense you're used to them having. I think this is a great pick. And like you said, I think the offensive line class, just like the receiver and cornerback class, that's super deep. So you could come around round 3 and get a guy who might be a little bit more of a development, but I think this is a great pick. It helps them spur their defense, and the more pressure you put on him, the quarterback in the front, the more pressure you can get on the back. And I think that this is a good, solid pick, even though it might be questionable to a few people. So I think you're back up here with Carolina.
So that's right. So we switch this up. So with the 15th pick in the NFL draft here, we'll pull a quick little reminder of you. This is the trade that went down. The Carolina Panthers missed out on getting their top players. In my eyes, their top players on the board are Sewell and Pitts. And now there's been reports out there today, as after we did this mock, that Justin Fields is high up on that list. So we'll see how that plays out with the way our mock's going. But they come down and they go out and they get cornerback Patrick Surtain out of Alabama. For me, he is the best cornerback in the draft just because I like the tools that he has. I think he has the ability to be one of those island cornerbacks that's just like kind of how I dub it, because like Revis Island is what I think of. And I just think that if you can get a guy that can kind of just lock down a third of the field, that's such a benefit to your defense going forward. And I think he pairs up well with somebody who's like a speedster and is pretty good underneath with Dante Jackson.
Yeah, like I talked about, Patrick Surtain and J.C. Horn and Caleb Farley, they're all competing to be the number 1 cornerback in this class. But I like this pick. I think it's a great addition for the Carolina defense. I like Patrick Surtain. I wonder if he's going to fall so far to 15, and just because you said that quarterback demand is so high that players like this will fall and be a steal at 15. I like Patrick Surtain a lot. I wish if the Chargers didn't have such a big need at tackle, we could take him because we also have that big need at cornerback. But great versatile player, like you said. You think of top-tier cornerbacks when you think of him. So moving on here, we got Arizona at 16, and I think they take the next cornerback, Caleb Farley from Virginia Tech. I think the most interesting thing about Caleb Farley is that he didn't play cornerback until he got to college. He was an offensive player, played quarterback. They tried moving him to wide receiver, and, he just stuck at cornerback, but he didn't look like it was his first time playing cornerback. He has a great combo of size, length, he's really quick, he's an athlete, and he's great in man coverage, but you worry about his injuries with the ACL tear and the back spasms, but he looked great in his pro day. He's a ball hawk, he's a good cover corner. You worry about his zone coverage, and he has some tackling issues, but I think he's, again, the next best cornerback. The Arizona Cardinals just lost Patrick Peterson. They're looking for a younger guy to bring in, take in that spot. I think if you can, if you have some assurance that his injuries aren't going to be a lasting problem, this is a good pick here, but the injuries scare teams.
For me, the biggest thing, losing Patrick Peterson needs to be replaced right away. You touched on it there, and I think that's why I think the Cardinals have to go cornerback. I do think Caleb Farley is a risk, but I mean, today's day and age, you don't have to play players right away. On top of that, he can heal all offseason. I mean, I know you want these guys to be like, being ready on the game field and everything like that, but he can just get his playbook ready. He can just get his mentality ready and just get healthy and then come in and show that he's a playmaker like we've seen in the past. Now, with the number 17 pick in the NFL draft, the Las Vegas Raiders step on in and they jump. They need a cornerback, and they're like, you know what? We've got to get on this trend that we got going on right now. And they're going to get Greg Newsome, number 2, cornerback out of Northwestern. Now, Greg Newsome is not a guy that is like a household name for everybody. He's been moving up drafts due to his playing ability this past season, plus his pro day. And he's one of those guys that I think is going to be a great number 2 cornerback for a very long time in the NFL. Like, he's not the fastest guy, but he's like one of those students of the game. Kind of what I was just talking about unfairly, where I think he needs to learn the playbook and everything and just focus on his mentality. I think Newsome's there. I think Newsome could get faster at the NFL level, and he might get burnt deep. But I mean, underneath, we need plays that, bump and run and people try and gun at him. He's going to stuff them, and he's going to be able to shut down. And he's really good at closing down that space and reading the quarterback's eyes. Yeah,
like you said, this kind of seems like I'm scared there's going to be no cornerbacks left kind of jumping at it. Because I think, the Raiders decimated their offensive line, and there might be a need there at offensive line. But like we've talked about, that's such a deep position, and so is cornerback. But I think Greg Newsome is a good cornerback. A little high, maybe at 17 for me, and maybe the Raiders have other issues. But wouldn't it be a Raiders thing to just... probably even draft someone they don't need at 17. But not to pick on the Raiders as much as I'd like to. Move on to 18. Miami's up again. And, this pick is dependent on the fact that Cincinnati goes with Jamar Chase. If they go with Jamar Chase, they need this wide receiver here at 18. And with that, I have them taking Rashad Bateman, wide receiver from Minnesota. And I think he honestly is a criminally underrated wide receiver in this class. He plays in Minnesota, so Big Ten competition, nothing like the SEC by any means. But he is a great route runner. He kind of gives me like a young Devontae Adams or Keenan Allen vibe. He is super good on the slot, but he is also good on the outside. He's speedy, and you have to take all these 40 times with kind of a grain of salt this year since there was no official, combine. But he ran a 4.43 40, and that's pretty quick. He's great off the line, and he always finds separation. Ritua, he needs someone who is versatile. Like you said, that's one of the best qualities to have in an NFL player. He's got the speed. He can target the ball super well. His ability to get separation is important, and I think this would be a great pick. I think Rashad Bateman, there was some talks of him being a second-round, late first-round pick, but I think sliding in here, I think he's the best wide receiver left, and it fits that need for him.
For me personally, this is a very bold claim and bold take, but he is my number 2 receiver on the board. Mm-hmm. I don't really care about his tape from 2020 just because like he wasn't going to play, then he played a little bit, then he left, and like he didn't really do much in 2020 except for kind of move himself down draft boards, in my opinion. But if you look at his 2020 tape, look at his 2019 tape, he looked fantastic. He was dominating out there, and that was with somebody like Tyler Johnson already there taking looks as well. But he just looked fantastic with poor quarterback play. And that's kind of what I want to see from my receivers. Like, yeah, it's great that like Jamar Chase dominated with Joe Burrow, who had one of the best seasons ever. And then we have all these Alabama receivers dominating with Mac Jones, who had the most accurate season ever. And now we have somebody like Bateman, who dominated with, can you name, without even looking, can you name Minnesota's starting quarterback?
I truly can't,
You
buddy.
can't, and I guarantee if I asked all these professional draft analysts, they would take a second and not be able to name him either. That's how irrelevant he is, and that's how good this guy is. I like Bateman here. I think he's going to be the number one for Miami, and this is a great pick. And you're just helping Tua, both of us. Tua's just happy today. With the 19th pick in the NFL draft here, the Washington football team goes out and gets another defensive playmaker in outside linebacker Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah and Okoromoa. And I think out of Notre Dame, this guy might be the best linebacker in the draft. The reason why I say that is because he doesn't really have any red flags that Micah Parsons has. That's like the one thing separating them on that. He's very explosive. He's able to play all downs. Like he's like a slightly more athletic, like Thomas Davis. I think that he has really good range on the field. He's able to play coverage. He's not like the biggest, strongest guy. He's only 215 pounds. So he's not going to be able to like bull rush and a big, strong right tackle. But in the open field, he's really good at like that whole pursuit. That trait of being able to close down space is fantastic. And this Washington team keeps getting better at defense. And I don't know how they keep doing it, but these players keep falling to them every draft.
Yeah, Washington's defense is honestly just, it's scary. One of the best in the NFL. They get a good impact defensive player every year. They just got the defensive rookie of the year. And I think this is all dependent on if they can't trade up to get a quarterback. If they can get in that top 10 rush and not have to give up a ton, and get, the Trey Lance or the Justin Fields, I think they just go defense again here. They can get a wide receiver in the coming rounds. It's such a deep class. And I think you get the impactful defensive player, bulk up that defense even more, and you just kind of look for your wide receiver playmakers. Either they might even ride out Ryan Fitzpatrick for a year. He's not a bad quarterback. So I think this is a great pick. Love Notre Dame players, honestly. They're just a different breed. But we'll move on here. Dallas. They traded back here with the Bears at 20. We talked about the defensive players they want. They're going to be there, but I think they go offensive tackle here with Christian Darrisaw, and a lot of these picks are dependent on if Cincinnati actually takes a tackle or not. If so, I don't think Darrisaw makes it past 13. But, he started as a true freshman, and he improved like each and every season. Just a great prospect at tackle. He's got great size, length, and mobility. He's like a dominant blocker, not only in the running game, but the passing game, and that is huge. With Dak, who just got back off of an injury, you need to protect him. And that offensive line was not great last year. And you need that to protect Dak. You need it to feed Zeke. Zeke had a terrible year last year if you look at all of his other years, and this would be an improvement for Dak and Zeke, and he can have time to throw the ball. They can get those gaps he need again. I like Dallas taking a tackle here, but like you said, they could also go defense, I think.
No, I agree, and I really like Darrisaw. I wanted to take him at 15 for Carolina. I think he's going to be a good left tackle in the NFL. He could also play right tackle, and I like players that come out of college that have lots of experience, but they don't have a lot of wear and tear. They're not like an injury-prone player. Great pick for Dallas. They need to get back to this, dominant offensive line to help keep this team in a playoff push. Now, with the 21st pick in the NFL draft, the Indianapolis Colts are on the clock, and they brought back T.Y. Hilton. They got Michael Pittman last year. A couple years ago, they got Paris Campbell. I'm not done adding to this receiving group. I feel like nobody has truly hit. Hilton's been playing well as an old man, trying to mentor these younger guys, but I think they need to hit on a guy. And for me, it's explosive home run hitting wide receiver Elijah Moore out of Ole Miss. I know a lot of people are going to say like, oh, he's going to say Rondale Moore. Nope. I'm talking about Elijah Moore. He's 5'9", 175 pounds, I think he came in. I mean, he's very fast. And this is a guy that I think is going to be what they wanted to be in Paris Campbell. He's going to be healthier. He's able to have that really good burst. He's got really good hands, and he's able to create separation because of he's pretty much like a lesser Devontae Smith for me when it comes to route running, just slightly, but he's faster. And I just think his ability to just kind of just make big plays is going to push him up boards. And I think this would be a great pairing with somebody like Carson Wentz, and will give this Colts team a really dynamic receiving group.
Yeah, the Colts are a really good team if you look around. They used Phillip Rivers as a bridge quarterback last year, and they got the quarterback in Carson Wentz, who I truly believe is better than what he's shown in Philadelphia, just because Philadelphia is just a wreck. But the Colts have a good defense. You know, their offensive line is solid. They might need another tackle. They've got a nice new running back from last year, and I think, you know, adding another speedster, especially T.Y. only came back on a 1-year deal. You don't know if he'll come back. He's a little bit healthier, and I saw this morning on Bleacher Report that Elijah Moore is one of the most underrated people in this draft, and I would agree. You know, you could argue that maybe they go Tevin Jenkins here, but it would be a lethal offense with Elijah Moore at wide receiver.
This team, like you said, is so built. Like they have the ability to take luxury picks, and that's what this is. They're able just to take something. It's like having fun and you're playing Madden. You're like, no, I want the receiver that's fast.
And moving on to their division rival here at 22, I got them taking Tevin Jenkins, offensive tackle at Oklahoma State. You know, he, again, is a versatile offensive lineman. He played right guard, left tackle, right tackle. He really improved in his final 2 seasons. The first couple weren't anything to write home about, but the last 2 seasons really solidified him as a future NFL player. He's a top-heavy blocker, and he has the ability to establish quick wins, and he controls defenders. Like, he's one of those tackles where defenders have to struggle to get by him, you know, and he's just a great run blocker, which for someone like Derrick Henry, who arguably can take a hit or two and still run 100 yards, you know, but that's, if you could get him wide open, you can only imagine what he can do next, and I think this would be a great pick for someone, and this is a great need here for Tennessee.
Yeah, and I think the Titans are very upset that Elijah Moore gets taken right before them because of their need at receiver, and I think he fits with the receivers they have really well, and they have to quickly adjust, but they don't have to think too long. And I think that you have it right. Like we have Derrick Henry, who is such a good running back and a guy that I've been doubting for too long and everything, and I think he's one of these premier running backs in the NFL, and you've got to be able to establish protection on that line at all 5 spots to continue this dominance at running the ball. But on top of that, Ryan Tannehill is not like the healthiest quarterback in the world. So you got to make sure you can protect him as he's getting into his 30s. And you've got to just maintain this balance that the Titans have. And I think getting a really solid offensive lineman is the best way to maintain balance. Now, with the number 23 pick in the NFL draft, the New York Jets are on the board again. They're ready to draft. And they just, you know, they got Zach Wilson. And we were just talking about whether or not they would actually help him out. And we had the opportunity here to help him out, and I decided to go otherwise instead of helping him out and go against my own words. The only reason why is because I see such a high upside player in Jason Owa, edge rusher out of Penn State. I think the upside here for this guy is tremendous. And when I think of a Jets team, I think of those old Rex Ryan days where this defense was just stout and could stop anybody, and like, doesn't matter who was playing on quarterback or offense because their defense is going to get stops. And I think they need to get back to that. And for me, getting a guy that's got such high upside that is able to, he's just very explosive. He's really good on the edge, and he gets past that offensive line so well. For a Penn State team that struggled defensively, he was a bright spot this past year. And I think with his agility and how quick he is, he's going to be able to do well in the NFL. I think he's going to take some time, because I don't think that he's fully learned the game yet, which should be scary for people, as he's already this good without actually, I feel like, fully knowing how to play the game.
Yeah, it's like when Patrick Mahomes said after his first season he didn't even know how to read defenses, and you're just like, okay, whatever, dude. Yeah, but I do like Owa here for New York, and like you said, you know, we need to help Zach Wilson out, but they have the 34th pick, so they could go somewhere there. You know, and I see that you did choose for them to take defense again, which is kind of funny. But, you know, I like this pick. You know, like we talked about with Micah Parsons, that defense wasn't great last year, but he was a good, you know, a shining star in that defense. And if he can learn the game a little bit more, that will be awesome, especially against teams where, you know, they play in the AFC East. They got to get to Josh Allen. They got to get to maybe Justin Fields. They got to get to Tua. So I like this pick here. We'll move on to Pittsburgh here at 24, and it'll be our first running back drafted and the only one drafted in the first round. We've got Najee Harris, running back from Alabama, and Pittsburgh had one of the worst running games last year. You know, they lost James Conner to Arizona, and Najee Harris is a great power runner. They have not had that power runner since Le'Veon Bell, and he has versatility as a pass catcher, and they have not had that. I guess James Conner was a great 2-year, and he had that one great year, but they just haven't had consistency at that running back position. He has a knack for like falling forward when he gets hit. He'll get those extra yards. He'll take contact and keep going. You know, he's a flat-footed runner, and he just has great pacing and sees the openings really well through defenders. You know, and he just finishes drives with touchdowns. He can get anywhere, from anywhere on the field to get to the end zone. And I like Najee Harris. I think this is going to be a savior for Pittsburgh because he'll fall because just none of these teams above need running backs.
There's a few ways to, you know, stretch out the career of an older quarterback. One is to just for your team. One is to just you draft a rookie that can play for a long time. The other is you get some offensive line help to protect them. The other one is you get a dominant running back that can come in it and do more than one thing. I think Najee Harris is one of the best pass catchers in this draft as well. He's one of the best, you know, runners up the middle and on the outside. And if you can give him the rock 200 times this season, that's 200 times you don't have to worry about Big Ben taking hits. And I really like Najee Harris' ability to just create plays. I love that mentality. We talked about it with Smith a little bit, but those guys that just kind of go for those extra yards, I like it a lot. And I think that's all due to the ability. I think that's just being coached by Saban as always fight for more, never be satisfied with what you have. And I think him going to one of the best NFL coaches in Mike Tomlin is just going to help that. And he's going to join this lineage of fantastic Pittsburgh Steelers running backs. Now, with the next pick, the 25th pick in the NFL draft, Jacksonville Jags are back on the clock. And now they go the opposite route of the Jets. Now, for me personally, I think the Jags need more help on the offensive line right now. I think the Jets kind of established that last year. And what the Jags get to do is they go out and they get offensive lineman Elijah Vera Tucker out of USC, who is probably the best interior offensive lineman in the draft. If he wasn't like a dominant, he's going to play guard in the NFL to me. And if he wasn't like a dominant guard and he played tackle, he'd be even higher. But it's because of his positional value. For Jacksonville, they got to protect that inside. James Robinson looked really good last year. He can get even better on the offensive line. And you need to have something in place for Trevor Lawrence. They franchise tag Cam Robinson because they had to. Not because he's like a top 5 player in the NFL at right tackle. But for me, they need to just get more to protect Trevor Lawrence and establish helping James Robinson maintain what he did last year. And Vera Tucker does that for me.
Yeah, Vera Tucker is a great player. If he fell this far, I would maybe be surprised. But if he fell right into Jacksonville's lap, that would be amazing for them. They need to protect Trevor Lawrence. They had a very underwhelming year. They do have some, high-level pass protectors in Lindler and Norwell. Man, I'd be stumbling on my words. So if you got another person in there, it'd be great. It's good for James Robinson. And, they have a lot of pieces that they already have fit. They got their number 1 wide receiver in DJ Chark. They got another one in Marvin Jones Jr. this offseason. I think they addressed that pretty well, and they could still grab one in the next coming rounds. It's just so deep that they could grab another guy. So I think addressing the offensive line here with their second first-round pick is the most important thing to do. And I like this pick a lot, especially with such a high-performance player. We'll move here to 26. Cleveland is going to build on their nasty defense. That defense has the potential to be number 1 in the league. I have them going Jalen Phillips, edge from Miami. And, they have Myles Garrett, and they just got Jadeveon Clowney, but I still think they grabbed this edge here because he's a 5-star recruit that came to UCLA and just never really came out of anything. But when he transferred to Miami, everything came together. And he's just an insane playmaker against the run and the pass. He's got great size and length, and he's just got great power technique. He's just an athlete, and he's just hard for offenses to handle. It takes you a guy or two, a guy and a half maybe to stop him, and he just has the recipe to be a great defender in the NFL in a great defense, which is what the Browns have. And he's got some worries He did well in college, but, against some low-level teams like we've talked about, but that stuff doesn't matter to me as much. It's just he was just explosive. And, I'd like to see him in a defense that would utilize him extremely well, and he could learn from Myles Garrett. And I think they only signed Clowney to a 1-year deal. So if they take him here, they don't have to pay as much for Clowney the next year if he does pan out. And I just really like Cleveland's defense right now.
Yeah, and I'd like this pick as well. I think that there's an argument for them to go interior defensive line as well. But realistically, this is luxury. We're just talking about this with, the Colts. And I think the Browns are in a position that they're just going to be able to take whoever kind of falls to them. And it's just everybody's going to be like, how did they get this guy? That's how it's going to look. No matter who they take here, it's going to seem like they stole somebody. And yeah, Jalen Phillips, the edge rushers in this class aren't getting looked at like they have in the previous years. Like over the past 5-6 years, we've had an edge rusher in the top 10 that everybody's like, you got to get him. And they're kind of fallen because of these other positions that have so much value right now in depth. And I think this is a great move for them. Everything you touched on, I agree with. I sign off on. I second. We're good to go. Now,
heard that.
Now let's move to the Baltimore Ravens, the 27th pick, their first pick in the first round. We have them going with wide receiver Terrence Marshall Jr. out of LSU. Now, this is a guy that, for me, I like his size. He's 6'2", 205 pounds. He's almost 6'3", he's 5'8". But he's just a really nice receiver, and he's got some good upside. I think he's really smooth off the line. I think he hits his routes really hard, and I don't know, the way he cuts is it's attractive to me. Like when I think of these traits when I'm watching this tape, I like it. And his ability to track the ball in the air, he's one of these guys that'll go up and he'll make a play for you. And with the accuracy of Lamar Jackson not being that fantastic downfield for me, I think he has a good arm, but I was saying he's going to need guys that can go up and get it. And I think that's what Marshall Jr. is going to do for this team. Going to dominate there based on the way that the Ravens play. But I think it's a good fit for the Ravens.
Yeah, like you said, the Ravens need a wide receiver, and they tried to address that through free agency, but just guys kept returning like T.Y. Hilton and Juju Smith. They just went back to their, home teams just because the way free agency was just weird this year with cap space situations. And, they have Hollywood Brown, a young, fast guy, but they need a wide receiver. There's no, at this point, questioning it. And like you said, Lamar Jackson's accuracy, you need someone to go up and get the ball, but you need someone who you're scared of getting the ball, so Lamar has that versatile threat of I could run the ball on you because you're guarding, you're double teaming, and they just don't have that guy. You can single cover every wide receiver they have and get away with it, but I like this pick. Wide receiver just is so deep in this class that honestly I could see them grabbing another one later on and just seeing what they can do with them, but this is a good pick here, and they've got another pick coming 4 picks later. Will they address another need? So I like this pick. I think at 28, New Orleans stays with wide receiver, and they take Kadarius Toney, wide receiver from Florida. And, he's not a household name wide receiver, but a coach like Sean Payton could develop him extremely well. And he's a versatile wide receiver where he's just great in the slot, which isn't a need, Michael Thomas, but he's even better on the outside, which is a need. You have someone, accounting for him on the outside. So Michael Thomas is freed up, or if Michael Thomas is double guarded, he's free on the outside. He's super speedy. He's a track star. He knows the playbook really well. He's just one of those guys that's got the offense down. He knows where he's supposed to be, and defenses will have to account for them. And I just really like this pick here. I think, we don't know what's going to happen with Taysom Hill or the quarterback, but they just need another wide receiver to make Michael Thomas more available and kind of come up from his disappointing year last year.
No, I agree. And I think, so Tooney scares me a little bit. He's not my favorite prospect. I do understand the love for him around NFL teams. And I think he will fit in well across from somebody like Michael Thomas. And you got to get, I'm not going to talk about Taysom Hill. You need to get Jameis Winston more weapons. That's just how I look at it. And I think right now for me, Taysom Hill is their third best receiver. That's how I look at it. And I'm not happy with that. So yeah, getting somebody like Kadarius Toney is a guy that is going to frustrate opposing NFL teams, their defenses. And I really like this pick for them as well. Now, moving on to the number 29 pick in the NFL draft. Things are not going the way that the Green Bay Packers are wanting right now. I mean, we've had like 6 receivers taken off the board, right? Or 7 receivers. That's not good for them. And everybody wants them to go out and get, a really good cornerback or go out and get a receiver because they never do. But they're not going to do that here. Value falls and they take value because that's what the Packers do. With the number 29 pick, they take Christian Barmore, interior defensive lineman out of Alabama. This guy is a stud. Some people have him ranked as high as like number 11 on their board. However, supply and demand of other positions are just pushing value down. And we're going to see a lot of teams, a lot of playoff teams are going to get a lot better because they don't have to take risks. They can take really good floor players that have some good upside. So what does Barmore bring to this Packers team? I mean, he's really consistent. Over the past 2 seasons, he just kind of delivers exactly what you want from your interior defensive lineman. He's showing his growth each season. He's only going to get better the bigger he gets. I mean, right now, currently, he's 6'5", 310. As soon as he can turn that into a little more bulk, he's going to dominate right up the middle. And the Packers are a really good defensive team. Their worst qualities are their rushing yards and rushing touchdowns they allow per game, where they rank in the teens of 13 and 14 respectively. And if they can fix that, this Packers team is going to have a top 5 overall defense at all levels. And I think getting a guy like this who can come in and be your nose tackle is going to be fantastic for the Packers.
Yeah, I agree with you here that there are going to be some fans disgruntled that they don't take a wide receiver here. But like you said, like we've talked about, wide receiver is such a deep class this year that they could grab 1 second round to complement Devontae Adams. And so taking someone here to be a good run stopper in a division where you play Dalvin Cook twice a year, Swift in Detroit, who, is a up-and-coming good running back, and Chicago's got a great backfield. So I think this is a great pick here, and just like you said, he's going to fall just because everybody else needs something else.
And we do have another trade here before you jump on in. The Buffalo Bills are sending away pick number 30 to the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals see the run on offensive lineman going, so they move up 8 spots, giving up their 4th and future 5th-round pick. Now, this trade offer might be a little light, but based on our calculator, it comes out with the Bills on top.
Yeah, and I think, you can argue that they're foolish here for sure for taking Jamar Chase when a Penei Sewell is available. But because tackle is so deep, they get at 30 here Dylan Radunz, offensive tackle from North Dakota State University. And this is a good tackle. He just, like we said, it's so deep that he just falls. If there weren't, so many big names, he would be one of the top picks. I honestly believe it. And he's a dominant left tackle. And scouts have said that he just wants to maul people on the line. And he has great athleticism, and he's got amazing body control and balance. And, he's extremely good run blocker. He'd be a great fit for Joe Burrow because he just needs that protection. They need to probably address a running back, in later rounds or see what's going on. But, they can develop a good run game because they have someone who can, open the holes for him. And he just has like a good frame where he can develop more mass and bulk. He's just able to grow as a player. And I'm really high on Dylan Radunz. I wish he would fall further so the Chargers could grab him and get some depth there. But I do like him. I think he's a great prospect.
Now, with the 31st pick I'm not going to talk too much about it because there's really not much I can say. I think you're right on everything you touched on. And I think it's best for Cincinnati to move up. And the best part about this, too, is why they move up is because they get this 5th-year option on him as well, which is something that is so valuable. Now, with the number 31 pick, the Baltimore Ravens, who just received this from the Kansas City Chiefs, they got rid of a guy that didn't want to be there, and they're going to get a guy that wants to be there and a guy that is going to be okay playing right tackle. And that is going to be Samuel Cosmi, offensive tackle out of Texas. Now, here's the thing. He's a multi-year starter, 3 years at left tackle. And he's shown big-time playmaking ability. He's almost 6'6", he's 314 pounds. And even though he's big, he's pretty sharp and he's quick on his feet. And he's really able just to kind of push the mold and control that blind side. And now with him being so good as a left tackle, I think it's easy for him to transition to a right tackle position for this Baltimore Ravens team. And I think that he is going to just fit into everything they want. Now, it is kind of weird trading away a guy that's 24 that's playing the position at a high level to just draft another guy at this. But however, you're getting a guy that wants to be there. And that's the biggest thing.
Yeah, Orlando Brown Jr. just didn't want to transition to the other side of the line. And, you know, whether it's just he's just better and knows he's there, we'll have to see how it plays out in Kansas City. But offensive tackle is something that Baltimore needs to address now. And they get him, and they get a wide receiver still in the first round. Like, I see Baltimore just benefiting off of this trade, really. They don't have to pay Orlando Brown Jr. what he wants to be paid. And this is just, I think it's a good trade. I think it'll pan out for Kansas City as well, even though somehow they'll have the cap space to pay Orlando Brown Jr., which is just something I don't want to be too mad about right now. And we'll move on to the Super Bowl champions, our last first-round pick. They'll take Azeez Ojulari, which I probably butchered, but he's an edge from Georgia. And this guy, I think the most interesting thing I learned doing some research on him is he played every single third down play at Georgia because he's just such an impact player. You know, he's extremely reactive, and he has just good quickness. He's just got great body control. And he just gives 100% effort on every play. You know, scouts have been saying that he's a valuable chess piece where you can kind of fit in, and, you know, any defense that takes him is just going to benefit immediately. He can defend the run really well, which is important in a division where you play McCaffrey twice and you play Kamara twice. And, you know, Tampa Bay retaining all 22 of their starters and just bringing in more pieces, they just only have room to get better. And a defense that held Kansas City to 9 points in the Super Bowl only gets better.
Yeah, exactly. And getting these guys, like we keep spitting it, like versatility is my favorite ability. And yeah, I like that. I like the fact that he's a dominant third down guy. I like that he's able to just kind of just like plug and play. Like, he's one of these guys on defense that is a hooper. That's just like, he's just there to ball. That's what he's there to do. And I think the rich get richer, and that's what we're seeing here. This is also another trade spot that I think they could trade out of, and we'll see what happens there because they don't have pressing needs. Now, that is our first round here. Now, into the second round, we're going to touch on some things that happened here. We're going to kind of show you guys the first 16, second 16, and we're going to kind of touch on some really good value players that fell to day 2, but we're also going to talk about those 3 teams that didn't have a first round pick and give those guys some coverage. So first, we do have the Jacksonville Jags trading away number 33 and a future 7th round pick down to 41, where the Lions will take 41 and 101 to move on up. And they're going to get a guy that fell into the second round. And the next trade that we have here is we have the Carolina Panthers trading back again, sending away number 39 for picks 53, 85, and a future 5th round pick. You can see those graphics there. Now, here's the first 16. Before we dive into those final 3 teams, Molly, who is one of the best value picks that fell to day 2?
I touched on it a lot when I talked about Najee Harris from Pittsburgh, but just because there is no like huge demand for running back, in the first round, that another great running back is going to fall. Travis Etienne, running back from Clemson. You know, he's the ACC all-time leading rusher. He's a big play back, and he's just able to find the end zone from any point of the field. Explosive. He's extremely disciplined. He's got the ability to catch passes, and he needs to work on pass protection a little bit. But, I mean, there's just a lot of upside to him, and we have him falling to Miami at 36, which is just another valuable offensive piece for Tua to have.
Now, one of the guys I think is a value pick is actually one of the players I'm going to talk about on the teams that didn't have first round pick here on our mock, which the teams are Buffalo Bills, the Seattle Seahawks, the Los Angeles Rams, and the Kansas City Chiefs. Let's touch on the Buffalo Bills first. Now, the Buffalo Bills go out and they end up falling down, gaining some additional picks. They don't really need the draft right away. They can wait. It's fine. They're one of these teams they have a really good roster, and they get Ronnie Perkins, defensive end out of Oklahoma. And I think he is a fantastic defensive end. I think he played really good off the edge. He's very fast. He's able to cut like double teams in half, and he's really good at changing direction if he needs to. And he's one of those guys that we're going to hear it a lot this weekend, but he jumps off of film, and he's a nonstop, high effort, high pursuit type of guy. And I think this is a great pick for the Bills, who have a really good offensive side and good offensive line, and can get more sacks on the defensive side.
Kansas City, this is one I like. Jabril Cox, linebacker from LSU. I think he's a huge impact player, and, Kansas City doesn't have many weak points, but I'd say linebacker is one of the few. They get their offensive tackle with their first round pick, and then they come back and grab their linebacker late second round, and he just falls because value's falling. The rich continue to get richer, and I like that pick. I know you made that pick, and that's a guy that I'd like to see on my team making an impact.
Yeah, I mean, essentially they did with Orlando Brown Jr. That's who their first round pick is to me. So the fact they're able to get that offensive lineman starting for them, as well as get a starting linebacker here, is key. Now, the other two teams, Seattle Seahawks, they go out and they get Jalen Mayfield, offensive tackle out of Michigan. This is a guy that, I mean, the biggest thing here is Russell Wilson's, he's not happy the fact that he's constantly hit. I mean, he's getting sacked like 50 plus times for the past like decade. It's every year. And that's got to change. And they went out and they got Gabe Jackson, which is a great signing for them, a great ad. And I think going out and getting another guy like Jalen Mayfield, who falls in the late second, could honestly be a first round pick. He could sneak in there. I think it's a good thing for them to help keep Russell Wilson happy. And then the final pick that we have here is the Los Angeles Rams, who hate first round picks. They are contagious. They're allergic to first round picks. They don't want to do it anymore. So they just draft in the second round. And they're going to go out and they're going to replace Josh Reynolds. They're going to get a guy that is going to step in for Cooper Kupp when he eventually gets hurt again this year. And that is Amon-Ra St. Brown. He is the younger brother of, I can't pronounce this, Aquinius St. Brown out of Green Bay. I think it was close enough, I think. But this guy is, do you want to talk on him a little bit?
He's just a great wide receiver, and the fact that he falls this late in the second, honestly, is kind of surprising to me. I could see him being taken by Baltimore or even New Orleans in the first round. But, Matthew Stafford coming into Los Angeles, he already has a pretty electric receiving core, but you just need that insurance for Cooper Kupp. And, Woods will get a concussion at some point this year. So you need that insurance. And for Matthew Stafford to walk into a more talented wide receiver corps than he would have had in the Lions.
And that is going to do it for us here on Second and Short in our one and only mock draft. A little bit longer than we wanted to go, but you know what? It's worth it. This is a very exciting time around this year. I love talking about the draft. I know you love talking about the draft. And yeah, be sure to check us out. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Check us out on TikTok. Every day I'm dropping TikToks, brand new stuff every day. I'm covering every NFL team. And yeah, be ready for some polls and stuff. And thank you guys for tuning in and listening. Thank you, Molly, for joining us today. Getting back on this.
Of course, thank you. Hopefully we can keep going once school ends and it's kind of a brutal time and get some stuff going this summer.
Yeah, get past these finals and everything. With that being said, this is Second and Short, and you guys enjoy your draft. Take care.